Hey everybody, welcome to BrickVault. Today is our Sunday LEGO Top 10 Mocks of the Week episode. People are constantly building incredible models from LEGO bricks all around the world, and in this episode we showcase just a tiny slice of this week's creativity coming from all the very talented guys and gals. Linked below in the description are links to all their Flickrs. I highly encourage you guys to check them out on their respective pages and maybe give them some support via comments, follows, etc. This week we released another video also showing off Lucas's The New Batman Adventures Batmobile mock, now available at the webstore, and it just occurred to me that out of all the Bat vehicles under his belt, we never got a Batman Beyond Batmobile yet. Interesting. Anyways, at the end of each episode, we show pictures of your creations, the viewers, so if you would like to participate and have your LEGO build show up at the end of next week's episode, check out the description below for the proper email. Right, let's get started with the first build of the day. This is Olivia's Getaway by Perterz. Unsure if this is a build attached to a pre-existing story or something directly from the builder's imagination, but it gives off the feeling of a dark fairy tale. The cottage looks quaint and rickety, the surrounding wilderness is lush and full, plus Olivia looks a lot like a witch. So this scene has all the ingredients for a fantasy world for sure, but the colors are slightly muted and most of the undergrowth is built in a little bit of a darker tone, or really the whole build. From every angle though, you can find some kind of creative building technique, but the number one thing that sticks out to me is the build for the olive green tree. Those cheese pieces built in a series of small closed off clumps gives the tree a very full or furry kind of complexion, and having never seen that before made me want to jump in and point it out. Now this next build is this Swedish block of flats by Sarah Beyer. Microscale builders prove time and time again that you don't need a ton of parts to create something fantastic, and this build has no fat to trim, so to speak. All the pieces serve a very specific and needed purpose. I appreciate the use of the slightly different inverted light bluish gray studs to illustrate the difference between windows and doors, and the different types of trees feel natural, and the inclusion of the blue sky backdrop with the clouds ties the whole scene together very nicely. Moving down the line, this next build surely was inspired by the latest Star Wars UCS set for the Ywing, purely on the grounds that it scales so darn well with that model. But outside of that, we have something quite unique. This is the BFF Ywing, the best friends forever, I'm going to assume. Ywing by Tyler Sky. It looks as if the set was made using primarily parts found in the Friends sets, and the ship certainly rocks the theme's color combo. What stuck out to me was the wonderful shape that we get for the Ywing by removing a lot of that greebling. Usually a smooth Ywing will have a different shape because the builders try to stay accurate to the universe and keep the curved armor plating on, but this Ywing here bends the rules here just enough to cast this classic ship in a wholly different light, and I for one am amazed how good it looks. The bright yellow works surprisingly well. Maybe my favorite part of the building technique is how he managed to get the smooth curve along the arms that line up with the engines, and the inclusion of the basketball hoops fits just right. It's a solid build for a ship and fits really well in the specially made hangar, completing out a fun little scene. Now for the next build, I usually try to keep away from the war vehicles, and for the military vehicles I almost never mess with tanks, but here we are with one of the most commonly attempted builds in this genre, which is the M1 Abrams. This is the Syrian version of the vehicle according to the builder Gatchan, and it's an updated build based on a previous version of the model that he made a year ago, so it has gone through several iterations. Having seen about 100 attempts at this tank from tons of other builders, and even possessing a highly detailed mock of this vehicle ourselves in the studio, I could tell you immediately that this model is absolutely top notch. In the description of the build, it's described that the head is intentionally asymmetrical as to stay accurate to the original model of the Abrams, which is something that I was totally even unaware of, and I'm not sure if all these parts exist in the dark tan. Definitely a render here, but it sure is a striking look. Now this next build's theme is so completely different it might just be a bit jarring. Its title is One Small Step and was created by Dave Catella. It's described as one of a series of autobiographical builds, which I find absolutely fascinating and shows presumably the first steps of his son. It's a wonderful idea to try and capture a special moment like this in LEGO, especially if you are an older AFOL. I can definitely see how an idea idea like this would sort of get started. And really here, it's the small details of the room that pop out to me the most. We can see an excited German Shepherd, black cat, maybe that's a pig, I'm not sure, and just about a million details around the room. It makes you wonder how accurate the builder tried to make the design details of the couch cushions, for example, or the contents of the coffee table. Did he try to get this to look like a photograph of the moment? How much of the details are creative liberties, or perhaps accentuated memories? Anyways, the characters look animated, the quality of the build is top notch, and it really kind of carries this unique idea into fruition, and I can't stop thinking about the details of the room. Now, moving on, having just finished the last of our Lord of the Rings minifig collection videos, this build could not have come at a better time. Minas Tirith by Koen is a micro-scale build to truly take your breath away. It's built at a scale that at first glance you might call small, but the accumulation of all those tiny rooftops, towers, walls, and mountains ends up totaling over 11,000 parts. That's as many pieces that make up our minifig scale Sandcrawler or Ghost or something like that. It's an absolutely massive amount of pieces, and the design looks as though it was modeled heavily off what the city looked like from the films, but strikingly brighter and happier. The walls and towers are white, the land below looks fertile with farmland, and the scene is totally picturesque. The dark side of me does wonder though how the MOC would look in the scenario where it is changed into a siege mode. Maybe my favorite single building technique that I can see is the use of the panel techniques overlapping each other so the seam of the walls don't have any gaps as they arch around in a circular shape. It's an absolutely epic build for an epic story, and probably one of my favorite Lord of the Rings MOCs that I have seen this year. Speaking of epic, the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z series had its fair share of these moments too, at least epic moments, with Vegeta's Great Ape transformation being one of the early ones in the Dragon Ball Z series. Moko, the designer, has captured the look of the Saiyan armor really well with the high white boots, divots of yellow on the abdomen, and large flaring shoulder pads with white trim. My favorite part of the build is Vegeta's ape face, however, the snout with the subtle little ridge in the center, and the eyes are outlined as minifigure arms to capture the contorted, angry expression. This build is so simple in its accuracy and has a way of looking like an easy MOC to assemble, oddly enough. I seriously doubt that that's actually the case, but it's still pleasing to see something look so good and be made with simple and accessible parts. Next up is a build by Jim Wheeler called The Doctor. We've got what looks like a traveling doctor moving between villages, I guess, set in ancient or olden times. With a slight twist, his valiant steed is a slim dinosaur. It's a fun little touch that adds some flair to the build, but honestly, the smaller details that flesh out the scene are what really make it for me. The spherical clumps of the flowers hanging from the tan, tail, or tusk pieces used as trunks feel wholly alien in a certain way, yet the flowers are somewhat familiar, reminding me of cherry blossoms. They even speckle the ground and float on the water. The waterfall has that little crystal piece at the end which looks like the stream is kind of splitting into smaller droplets as it falls off the edge, and the doctor's carriage has an added detail of herbs hanging out of the bags on the back. This isn't the first build of this type of universe that we've seen from this builder, and it's one of the more imaginative worlds that I've seen fleshed out so well in just a single scene. Moving on, this next build is also dino related, yet completely different in every way. Anthony Wilson has made the Tyrannosaurus Nex. Get it? Nexonites. Honestly, some of my favorite builds from Bricks LA at the beginning of this year were giant Nexonites based builds, and this dinosaur's distinct build style is undeniably clean. The body is sectioned into a series of gray robotic slices similar to the toy snakes that look like they can slither but end up just pinching your fingers. The stance is dynamic and powerful with the fierce design for the head. The added turret on the back of the Nex, the Rex, feels like entirely extra and a little bit out of place, honestly. The idea that someone is operating this creature that just looks so animalistic feels a little bit like a stretch, and the orange highlights are few and far apart, which is a good thing in my book, and Anthony even put quite a bit of effort into the pedestal of the creature that grounds it a little bit more into this universe that we're looking at. Seriously, a realistic looking dino for sure. And bam, the last build. This is Leonid On's Preda the Demon. This is his entry for the BioCup 2018, and this ice demon is one evil looking creature. The head reminds me of a praying mantis with its triangular shape. The eyes have those little faces printed on it from the Nexo line, and they look like odd misshapen pupils, I think, sort of like from bugs or farm animals or something. The creature's stance gives the impression that it's slowly lurching forward with the somewhat painful yet steady walk, and every joint has been posed with precision to capture the feeling of the demon. The fingers and wrists being the most telling for me, but the build consists of many stacked pieces, some creating color gradients like that on the forearms and shins, and others adding more distinctive shapes to the body. Specifically, the waist expresses a lot of motion with all those layers stacked on top of each other, and Bionicle parts still remain some of the best pieces to use when creating expressive characters. The Preda demon being a prime example. Now, okay, that is my list for the top 10 mocks of the week. I highly encourage you all once again to check out the description below to see the original builders on their Flickr. This is just the tip of the iceberg in a lot of ways for these designers, a lot of people building stuff each week, and chances are you will find some other great builds in their feeds. Also, there are many linked builders not featured in the video yet still in the description below, so go check it out. And now it's time for the fan mocks of the week. If you want to have your builds featured in next week's episode, also check the description below for the proper email to send those pictures to us. Okay, with that, thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and here are the fan mocks of the week. Oh, hey everybody, hope you enjoyed that video. I just wanted to pop in really quick and say that we do have a web store, brickvault.toys, that sell instructions for super high quality mocks that are built by incredibly talented designers. So that is the first link in the description below. And also there's other videos too. We've got other things if you want to watch that. All right, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.